everyone.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Amy Chow, and I will be one of the moderators for tonight. Mike Reiners is our presenter, and I'm going to have him introduce himself in a little bit. And I also have Dr. Karen Greenhouse on the call or on the webinar as well with us. Just for the sake of webinar quality, we're going to keep everyone muted and all videos turned off. And then if you have a question, you can type it in the chat panel, and either Karen or I will respond back, or we'll stop Mike during his presentation when we get to a point and ask him to answer the question out loud for everyone. Right now, what would be a good time for you, if you're not used to Zoom, to kind of pull out your chat panel, or make sure you have it open so that you can actively, ask questions. So, Mike, if you'll move over to the next slide, we can start introducing ourselves a little bit and then let you get started. So, as I mentioned, my name is Amy Chow. I have been at Casio for the last almost 10 years, working in the training curriculum department. I manage our teacher consultants and oversee creation and editing of Casio's resources, as well as manage our product line as well. And we also have Dr. Karen Greenhouse, and I'll let her introduce herself.
That sounds so obnoxious. We don't have to say doctor. Hi, I'm Karen, and I work with Casio. This is my 6th year, and you can read all the things that I've done, but I've been an educator for over 30 years, and I love doing this and learning all this stuff, so I'm excited. And I'm going to be on tonight moderating the chat panel if you guys have any questions. So I'll do my best. If I can't answer it, I'm throwing it to Mike. Mike, you're next. You're up.
See, perfect example. She just threw it to me right there. Hi, I'm Mike Reiners. I've been working with Casio for about 15 years now. My background in AP Calculus is that I have instructed calculus, though I teach at a very small school, so I don't specifically instruct AP Calculus. I instruct more general calculus, but then I am involved in tutoring our students that decide to take the AP test based off of their calculus course. And I also tutor a number of AP Calculus students and have for a long time around the Twin Cities area where I live here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I've also authored some AP Calculus related technology, pedagogy, and instructional handbooks for Casio in the past. And I've been on the Classpad.net development team, which is part of one of the tools that I'm going to be showing you tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to do some sharing of some different content here. And the first thing I'm actually going to share is College Board's own AP site and some of their information on updates due to the coronavirus. So one of the reasons for this webinar is because the spring 2020 AP testing is going to be totally different than any other AP experience that any of us or any of our students have experienced any time in our careers, and definitely any of the AP tests the kids have taken. If they took any last year, well, they're not the same. This site is really wonderful. If you just look at this first part of the URL up here, all kinds of information, and it's, as far as I can tell, literally being updated daily. There was almost no useful information on that site as of the end of April, maybe April 27th or 28th. And lots of really good information has been added every day since then. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of things that are especially pertinent to our webinar tonight. First of all, the students are recommended what they should have ready on exam day. Now, this particular information is not specific to AP Calculus, but one of the things that I want to reference here in what they're supposed to have ready is if students are typing responses, then they should have one of these tools, Word, Google Docs, Notes, or another app to enter and save text. And what you're going to be seeing tonight is the another app, which I claim is far more useful for the students than any of the previous three, because we all know student gets into Microsoft Word, student starts typing things into Microsoft Word, all of a sudden formatting breaks, or they don't have the right version of Word installed, or they try to bring in a picture and that messes up all of their text, and then equation editing and so forth. It's a big mess, which is exactly why there is this keyboarding tip sheet that College Board has made available for the exams. Basically saying, when you're typing stuff in, pay attention to these things. And I'm going to show you that tip sheet right now. Try to make this a little bigger so that we can see it. And you can see there are so many rules. And all of these rules are, basically make it easier for the students to have their answers understood by the AP Calc graders. Put things in parentheses, define order of operations in a good way, write it this way, not that way. And one of the things that you're going to see tonight is by using Casio technology, really either hardware or software, the students will not have to worry about any of this. It's just one more thing, and they won't have to worry about it. All of these different expressions and things that College Board talk about, Casio technology automatically formats things in this way because it's math smart. So we can't obviously control whether students are going to write words in the correct way. We can encourage them to write things like A to B for an interval instead of A minus B. But there are a lot of things that we can help students with so that this keyboarding tip sheet should not be necessary. Another thing I want to talk about back here in the things that are going to be ready, you notice the things that are going to be permitted this year. Basically everything. So don't worry about, this calculator is accepted on the AP tests and can be used and this one can't. The whole nature of these AP Spring 2020 exams is that College Board knows they can't possibly police the students while they take the exam. That would be an unbearable IT disaster to try to handle that. So they're doing the smart thing and they're not going to try. They're going to give the students those 2 free response questions. One of them, the students will have 25 minutes to work on and then 5 minutes to do the messing around with submitting process. And the other one, they'll have 15 minutes and a 5-minute submission process. And while they're working on those things, College Board probably figures, well, there's only 2 questions and they don't have very much time to work on them. So if the kid wants to, read the entire calculus textbook during the 40 minutes they have of work time, go right ahead. You will probably run out of time. So that means the students have access to any calculator resource they want, anything. And any of their assignments or assessments or textbooks or classroom resources or notes or study guides. Then the other thing that we need to pay attention to is the submission guidelines. So what do the students actually have to submit and how are they allowed to submit? I'm going to pay attention to one of the 3 ways that they can submit things, which is for them to attach a text file. The other 2 ways are the students can handwrite their solution and then take a picture of it with their phone or tablet or computer or something and upload it that way. They can type text in something and then copy and paste it up to 15,000 characters into a text field, which of course almost no one is going to do on the AP Calc test because of math formatting. And then the third option is they can attach a text file. I think this name is actually a little bit misleading because if you notice, here are the accepted file formats. A text file, a doc or a docx, like basically Microsoft Word, which means that if the students did do their work in Google Docs, they'd have to export it into one of these formats. And here's the magic one that allows a lot of what we're going to talk about today. They will accept PDFs. Casio software exports its content as a PDF, and it exports it as a very small size PDF. The reason this is important is the students can only attach 1 file per question. They technically could attach 1 file that covers both questions. It's a little bit smarter if they just attach 1 file per question because then it separates it for the AP graders. But the file size maximum is 15 megabytes. And I'm sure if any of you have ever attached anything or embedded things into like a Microsoft Word document, especially, you know, here's my Word document and I made a graph using something. And then I took a picture of that, or I screenshotted it, and then I embedded it in my document and messed with the formatting. And all of a sudden my Microsoft Word document is 10 megabytes. How did that happen? Where did that all come from? Well, it depends on the size of the graphics and what you built it in and how you imported it. So you'll see today, Casio technology doesn't even get close to this number. It's so far below that the students could put all of their work into one PDF and then easily upload it. And the beauty is that Casio's technology takes all of the resources that the students would mathematically need to work on the exam, not just writing and typing their answer, but all of the graphing and all of the calculating, including computer algebra system, and all of the diagrams and all of the math formatting and text, and puts it all into one place so that the students kind of have a one-stop shop. And they can do all of their workspace is the same as the space they are creating their solution in. So let's dive right into what that looks like. Software-wise, I'm talking about Classpad.net, which has been around for a couple of years now, but it's basically all of Casio's mathematics technology in one place on the web, free, accessible anywhere that the student has a browser. It is particularly good at laying out mathematical content and making it very easy to move things around and arrange things so that they appear exactly the way that you want. One of its big advantages over other pieces of software. Currently, Casio, to support the remote learning that we're all in right now, is making available their Plus suite, which means not just the main Classpad.net that has always been free to everybody, but including their computer algebra system, which is an extremely advanced 17-year mature CAS system. So think, you know, Casio's Classpad handheld device, which has CAS and has since 2002, or any other CAS calculator that a student might bring in to the test in a normal in-person test. That's what they're going to have access to within Classpad. And also advanced statistical calculations. You know, maybe they're also taking the AP Stats test as well. This is free to everybody through August 31st. Now, Classpad's always free. The computer algebra system is not always free because that's a CAS system that allows capability all the way through and beyond 4th year of college. So in order to access that, if they are not a current user of Classpad.net, or if you as a teacher, let's say, we have some teachers attending tonight, I know it, if you are not a current user, then all you have to do is create a new account, which I'll show you how to do shortly. If you already have a Classpad.net account, but you don't have access to the CAS system, you will need to create a new account so that it doesn't muddy up your old one. So let me show you how to do that. You just click Login, Register. And as you might expect, like a lot of digital resources these days, we have a lot of people using this. And so there are times a couple of actions can be a little slower than normal. But this is the login screen, but if you want to register for a new account, you need to go down to Not Registered down here and select that. The first thing you'll be asked to do is accept some terms and conditions. I'll just do that briefly. And then you have two choices. You can either create an account with your email address, as shown here, or you can sign in with one of your existing accounts. You know, a lot of schools obviously have Google integration. You can sign in with an Apple account. That's nice if students are doing this on like a Mac computer or their iPad, for example. If you have Microsoft single sign-on linked to your OneNote or things like that, you can also do that as well. I won't complete that process for you now. I just wanted you to see how you would go and create that account. And then you'll have, when you do that, anybody who creates a new account from now through August 31st will have that plus access through August 31st, which obviously includes the AP times. So what I will do now is I will log into my account that has already been established with access to the computer algebra system. And we'll start talking about some AP content. The Zoom controls are in a very unfortunate place right now. Okay. So I'm in Classpad.net now. And here's my account, and I have a blank sheet of paper. AP requires that the students that they title their paper using their AP ID and their initials. So whatever AP ID and then initials, they could title their paper this way. And you'll see that when the paper becomes a PDF, it's going to come out generating this title. If they wanted to be extra careful, they could click anywhere in the paper and they could create a text sticky note, which was the last option here. And they could do exactly the same thing here. And they could say, you know, AP ID, blah, 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 and then initials. That's also an option. They could just put that right at the top of the paper if they wanted to. So the idea behind Classpad.net is we can create all kinds of different mathematical areas. I want to emphasize that those of you that have come using Casio hardware, physical calculator devices, and or calculator emulator software, things like that, I'm going to be referring tonight to the different things we're doing on Classpad.net and telling you this can be done on this calculator, this can be done on this one with the same syntax, so that you know what things will also work if the student is just holding a handheld and maybe, you know, doing their work on paper to take a picture of later too. So what I'd like to refer to now is if I switch to this sheet, are you able to see the sample questions from AP now?
No, we can't see those.
Okay, let me change how my screen share is going. I will just share screen and then that should work. How about now?
Yep.
Okay. So these are questions that AP graciously allowed us to use for tonight's webinar. And the reason that I'm using these particular questions is because they were just presented by AP on their YouTube channel on April 29th. If you go to the official College Board Advanced Placement YouTube channel and you look under AP Calculus AB, you will find these sets of questions addressed in their video on April 29th. And obviously the more recent questions that they've been sharing are very specific to the spring 2020 exam. So we know we're going to be getting 2 free response questions. We know the first one's going to be longer, 25 minutes. We know the second one's going to be shorter, 15 minutes. And so this is an example of some of those things that we might see. So let's look at this first free response question, and I'll show you how we might start laying out a solution using Classpad.net. So we've got a differential equation, and we're asked to do 3 different tasks. We're asked to use a tangent line to make an approximation. We're asked to find the second derivative. And notice that this differential equation is in terms of the dependent variable W and not the independent variable of time. So there's some implicit differentiation there. And then we're asked to find the particular, a specific differential solution to the differential equation at a fixed starting value. So 3 things that we're asked to do. Most of this is going to be done by typing text. And so let's just go back, and I want to show you some of the text features that are going to be available to you in Classpad.net. I just clicked anywhere and then chose the last option over here, which you can see with the mouse helper or the mouse over text says text. These text boxes are resizable in multiple different directions. You can change the color of them. So you could color different parts, different colors if you wanted to. You can change the text size. And also typical text commands like bold, italic, underline can be accessed by Control-B, Control-I, Control-U, or Command if you're on a Mac. So we could just start typing a solution to this problem. So we're told that we want to use the tangent line to the graph of W at t equals 0. All right, and here's the equation that we're looking at. You notice I could just select this. AP gives the students a number of different guidelines for how they could. Now I'm selecting on a PDF, so the selection is not working very well. But obviously AP is going to be giving them the online test format on the web that's not a PDF. So you will be much more able to select text. What I'm trying to say is that the students could select the text and then go into Classpad and they could paste it. Now it's not going to paste perfectly. You can see that, the fraction formatting and stuff doesn't go. But if they needed to remember things from this, they would be able to just copy and paste from AP and at least be able to get a start and save some time. We can say here at t equals 0, the slope of the tangent line will be, now, I go down to the next line and I press the math button here, giving me access to all of Casio's math templates. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I said the students are not going to need to pay attention to those keyboarding suggestions from AP if they're using Casio technology. And of course, this is true of our handhelds, calculators, and also our software. I can just go now and I can create a fraction template and I can say dw dt is equal to, and again, this could have been copied and pasted. That my copy and paste from the PDF is because of terrible PDF copying and pasting. But if you were copying this from College Board, the thing you maybe have to do is reformat your fraction. But otherwise, you would be seeing this, W minus 300. Well, we want what's going on at 0. So we just create that formatting. Notice the smart parentheses. And we know that at time 0, the amount of solid waste in the landfill was 1,400 tons. That was given to us here. And so this is going to equal 44. Now, this is an example. Some students may be able to do this in their heads. Some students may want the peace of mind to know that they've calculated this correctly. I know this is what I have to calculate. Watch, I'm going to copy this. I just did a Control-C. Now I'm going to go over here to the right, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to create a calculate sticky note. And I'm just going to paste exactly what I typed. Time saver. I don't have to write it and then type it into my calculator. Oh, okay, that's 44. So if I was not able to do that in my head or I wanted the reassurance, I have it right over here. And the great thing is my AP grader can see exactly what I calculated on my calculator over on the right. So I can say this in the math line and then say, and the equation of the tangent line will therefore be, and I could create another math area if I wanted to, even though this isn't particularly mathy. W equals 44t plus 1400. And you can get the idea. I'm not going to complete this. I'm not going to complete this for you. They're supposed to do the estimate at t equals 1/4. So basically, the idea is that the students can lay out their text solutions, plus they can have some calculations on the side. It's very easy. Once I've placed something, if I wanted to move this around, I can even put things on top of other things and lay them out somewhere else later. If I need to see them while I'm working, it's fine. I'm going to skip part B in the interest of time and go down to part C because of some particular syntax that I want to show you. So we're supposed to find the particular solution to the differential equation. This involves taking this differential equation here and doing separation of variables. Well, that's quite a bit of work, of separating work, but this is where all those math lines come in. And really, I'm only going to do a few lines of this to show you a couple of more math templates that are available to you. So maybe I will type 1 part C, and then I'll make a math line, and I'll show my first step in separation of variables by doing dw over w minus 300 equals 1/25 dt. And then I can type text. Even though it's in a math line, you can see the gray outline here. Even though it's in a math line, I can still type text. The math line just allows me to put the math templates in. So I can say integrating both sides, and I can make a new math line. And now I want to integrate. So I'm going to go over here to my second set of math templates. I'm going to create the integration symbol. Now, normally this is for calculating potentially either an indirect or I'm sorry, a proper and improper integral. So if I want to calculate, if I was in a calculate sticky note over here and I wanted to calculate a proper integral and improper integral, I would either fill in the bounds above and below the integral, the lower bound and the upper bound, or I wouldn't. If I don't fill in the bounds, then the calculation engine would say, oh, you just want to integrate. So for example, if I go here and I say, well, I'd like to integrate x squared dx, you notice it's perfectly capable of integrating. I would have to add the plus c for the constant. However, if I had wanted to integrate, say, from -3 to 1, I could type the -3 as the lower bound and the 1 is the upper bound. My point is, the engine doesn't care whether you put in the bounds or not. It's going to, but even more, the engine doesn't care. The calculation engine doesn't care because I'm in a text sticky note here, which means I can leave all kinds of things blank and no one is going to come back and check to see if I've used proper syntax. So here, I just want to say that I'm going to integrate 1 over w minus 300 dw on this side, and I'm going to integrate 1/25 dt, and then that's going to become the natural log of the absolute value of w minus 300. Oh, this went into a text area. I'll go back and make it a math area, just so we get nice formatting. Although I could type it in a text area, and again, no one is coming and checking this. There's no engine checking to see that I've used the proper syntax. But if I want the fraction, then I need to be in a nice math area. And I can continue from here and create the solution. It turns out that the solution, I'm just going to do ... here, because I want you to see the nice formatting of the solution. It turns out that the final solution here is w of t equals 1100 times e to the 1/25th t plus 300 for 0. Now watch this, I can just type a less than and then an equal to sign, and I get very nice formatting. Please notice the beautiful formatting that comes out as we look at something raised to a power. We've got a fraction inside a power. It's very readable. And now I can adjust the size of this and make this larger and smaller as I like. So imagine a student laying out their solution. Let's say that I've finished problem number 1, because, and let's say this was the first free response question. You know, looking at only these 3 parts, I would imagine that this might be more like the 15-minute problem that the students would see as problem number 2. But whether it's problem number 2 or problem number 1, whatever, let's say that I finished that and I want to do a separate Classpad paper for my second problem. So maybe I'll even go up here and say, problem number 1 or something. Change my title. Everything is being cloud saved as I type. So watch up here. I'm just going to change this to a 0 and click. It's being cloud saved. Once I get the little cloud with the check mark, it's been saved into my Classpad account. The cool thing about that is I could go back into my Classpad account after I get my AP scores back, and I could look at my answers and go over them with my teacher or talk about them with a fellow classmate and compare notes and, how did you do? What did you answer for this question? Obviously, I have to follow College Board's guidelines about when I talk about that and waiting the proper number of days and so forth. But the point is, instead of just sending your stuff into College Board, this is going to be unprecedented. The students are going to walk out of the test with their answers. And so they're going to be able to potentially have a record of what they did and not have to go and request the paperwork from College Board later or request the copies. Now let's say I want to send this to College Board. I want to upload it, which means I need to put it into a text file, or in this case, a PDF file. I'm just on my browser here in Classpad. So all I have to do is use my browser's print command. So I'm just going to do Control-P to print from my browser. And this is going to come up as my solution. Notice that everything is laid out in the same relative position to the way it was laid out on my paper. I want the destination to be a PDF. I'm just, whatever operating system I'm on and whatever browser I'm in, I just choose the PDF destination. Or obviously you could even use a screen capture. If you could use a screen capture tool, if maybe all of your content appeared on your screen, if your whole solution appeared just in your screen window, or if you were using a screen capture tool that allows you to scroll your page and capture everything, even when scrolling down, you could use that too. Lots of ways of making a PDF. Students are pretty good at making PDFs on their own now, especially during this distance learning time when they've been forced to do it a lot more. So I just go save as PDF, and then I save it. Okay, now I'm just going to save this to my desktop for a moment. And I'm going to go to my desktop briefly. And I'm going to show you, here's the PDF. I'll close that for the moment. And then I'm going to go back here. Notice again, everything was laid out exactly the way you saw it in the PDF. But the thing I want to show you is the properties of this PDF. Remember we had a 15 megabyte limit? We are at 50K. We're not even close. And I've laid out a full page of content. Now you might say, well, yeah, but you only laid out text. I did, that's true. And I mean, the calculation was really just some text. So let's look at a different question where there is significantly more going on than just some text. I'm going to look down at sample FRQ number 2. And I'll give you like 1 minute just to read through the question and what's being required of the students. Okay, so basically we have a couple of particles, very common AP free response question. I call these with my students number line questions. You've got stuff that's moving in one dimension, 2 directions. Like imagine it moving along the number line. We're on the x-axis. We've got one particle moving according to a trigonometric equation. We've got another particle moving according to a polynomial equation. And we're supposed to find when things are moving in what direction and when they're moving in opposite directions and are they slowing down or speeding up. This is a typical position, velocity, acceleration, first derivative, second derivative kind of a situation. So let's look at how we might lay this out in Classpad. I'm first going to create another text sticky because we're on a different part. I'm going to create a different color for this. Here's number 2, part A. And basically, if I want to know where particle R is moving to the right, then I need to take the first derivative of this equation And I need to evaluate where that first derivative is greater than 0 on this interval from 0 to 6. So watch how we do that in Classpad. I'm going to create a calculation sticky, and I'm going to define the function r of t, and I do that by using this colon equals, because that says not this is an equation. This says this is a defined function, and you'll see what that allows me to do a little later. So I'm going to define r of t. Let's see how well this copies. Again, it's going to copy from the web better than it copies here. So you can see it wasn't too bad. It doesn't do the powers correctly, but that's okay. I can delete that 3 and use the exponent key here and create a 3, and I can delete this and create a 2. And I can delete the period at the end. Let's see if Classpad likes that. Oh, it didn't like it. Maybe the minus sign is a problem. That could be. Let's give it a try. So a little copying and pasting and fixing, not too bad. You don't have to copy and paste, obviously, but it at least saves some time. So now Classpad has told me I have stored this as the r function. Well, I want the first derivative. So I will go to math, and I will go and grab the first derivative tool, which is always being done in Leibniz notation here. Unfortunately, you cannot yet type r prime of t. That's on our development list. We'd like to incorporate that soon, but right now you have to use Leibniz notation. So we have to do d dt of r of t. Notice the r is coming out in bold. That's Classpad telling us that that function is already defined. And here's my first derivative. Well, what do I want to check? I want to check when that answer is greater than 0. But that's something I need to solve. So I'm going to type solve, and here's the computer algebra. Well, actually, we've already been using the computer algebra system because we're doing symbolic mathematics right now and not numeric mathematics. So I'm going to solve when is this answer greater than 0, and I want the t values that tell me when that answer is greater than 0. Oh, wonderful. When t is less than 1 and when t is greater than 3. So up here, I can now just say, as shown in the work at right, the first derivative of r of t is positive for t less than 1 and t greater than 3. Then I'm going to make a math area here. I kind of like to do this because I'm going to be doing some less than or equal to signs, because r of t is only defined for 0 less than or equal to t, less than or equal to 6. That's the reason I wanted the math line, so that I got this nice symbolic use of less than or equal to there. You know, again, College Board has said that this is fine for less than or equal to. They'll accept that. So that could easily have been typed without making a math line. But I can now say particle r, and I just used Control-I to make italics there, is moving to the right on the intervals 0 is less than t is less than 1, and 3 is less than t is less than 6. And that would be a perfectly good solution for College Board. That should earn me a 5 on my exam, as long as I'm writing things in this way. But my point is, I was able to do all this calculation work in exactly the same space. And the great thing is, if I continue to work on this paper now, Classpad already knows what the r function is and what its derivative is. I'm going to be able to reuse this content later in my paper without retyping it again. So let me go down and go to the next part here. We now want to find all times during which the two particles travel in opposite directions. If you do that by hand, you have a lot of work to do on a test that is timed. Even if you're in that 25-minute section, which I think a question like this definitely could be a candidate for the 25-minute question, I think one of the reasons that you see this part D in a different font is because AP might be saying, or a College Board might be saying, well, if it's a 15-minute question, you might only see parts A, B, and C. If it's a 25-minute question, you might see part D added, okay? So if we saw parts A, B, C, and D, we might be in the 25-minute, that first question. But if you want to find all the times the particles move in opposite directions, you have to find where the first derivative of this function is positive and the first derivative of this function is negative, and where the first derivative of this function is negative and the first derivative of this function is positive. But watch what you can do in Classpad. So I'm going to create a new sticky note. We'll keep it that red color for question number 2. You know, again, College Board is not going to be picky if the students make things red or blue, and you saw in the PDF was a black and white PDF anyway. So it takes the colors of the sticky notes away so that it's easy to just see black against a white background. I'm just showing you some features of Classpad as you go along. So let's talk about number 2, part B. We already found the first derivative of the R function. Now I can go and find the first derivative of the P function. So P of T was 2 cosine. Now watch this, I need to type pi. Maybe I don't see that pi is on the keyboard down here. Watch what happens if I just start typing pi. Classpad knows what I might be referring to. Do you want pi or do you want a piecewise function? Oh, I'd like pi, please. I like pi, it's tasty. So multiply by t for tasty, and there we go, close it off. Okay, there's my P of t function. Like before, I can say, you know what? I would like to take the derivative of that function with respect to t. There's my derivative. It took me no time on my tests to calculate that derivative. It's not that hard of a derivative to calculate if you're a really good calculus student. But again, things that are time savers on a test like this are very helpful. So now what I want to do is I want to know, when is this greater than 0? When is it less than 0? Well, I could do a bunch of messing around with that, and I could do a bunch of solving just like this and compare intervals. Or what I could do is create a graph that shows clearly when one is positive and when the other is negative, and vice versa. So I'm going to create a graphing sticky here. Again, I just clicked anywhere in space and chose the second icon here for graph. And let's drag this up here and put it right underneath our text sticky. And I'm just going to drag the axes around, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm just using the scroll wheel on my mouse right now. If I wanted to get to window settings more specifically, I could go up to these 3 dots and change window settings. In fact, I could change the label of the x-axis to be the t-axis. And now it looks like a T here. But I want to show from 0 to 6 because that's where my functions are defined. And now I'm just going to click this little FX to be able to type in the functions. My first function, here's where copy paste comes in handy. I'm going to go up here and grab this first set of results here. That's being finicky. It wants me to move the sticky. 3t squared minus 12t plus 9. Well, I don't really want to use t when I'm graphing because I don't want the graphing area to think that this is a parametric equation using t. So I'm just going to type it, 3t squared minus 12t plus 9. Oh, gosh, I just said don't use t. And then I use t. 3x squared minus 12x plus 9. How about that? There we go. There's my graph. This is the first derivative of particle r. And now, let's do the first derivative of particle p, which is right here. So I'm going to make a fraction. I'm going to type negative sign. Keep typing when. It's like I have this subconscious idea of what's going to happen on my AP test when I use Classpad. X times pi over 4 times pi divided by 2. And there's that function. Now, again, AP wouldn't really care about this, but I want to show you a feature here that you can use if you really want to say that you only want to be seeing these functions between 0 and 6. You just type a vertical bar. That's the shift character on your keyboard above enter. And you say, you know what? I want only to be from 0 to 6. Now, you can't really see anything happen on the parabola when you do that because the parabola was cut off at the top. And we don't really care about the things that are happening up here anyway, because we care about when the functions are greater than or equal to 0. But I can go from 0 to 6 here, and you'll see, notice the trigonometric function cut off. And now it is very easy to see that the red function is less than 0 and the blue function is greater than 0 when x is between 0 and 1. And let me just highlight that here. See, in that range right there, the blue is above the axis and the red is below the axis. And also, that happens to also be true between 3 and 4. During that range, the blue is above the axis and the red is below the axis. Between 1 and 3, they're both below. And between 4 and 6, they're both above because this blue parabola is going up and up and up and up and up. So now for number 2, part B, I could say, see calculations of P of t shown at right. The graph below displays r prime of t and p prime of t on the interval from 0 to 6. So again, realize what I'm doing. I'm doing all my calculations and all my evidence in the same space. Certainly, I would advise that if students plan to do this and would like to do this on their test, that they practice first. Take a practice FRQ and play around with messing around doing it in Classpad. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that every FRQ they see can be completely done in Classpad in a time-efficient manner. Maybe not. But for something that's very calculation intensive, even if the students are just using Classpad to do their calculating, like the stuff that you see on the right, and they're going to write their solutions, fine. But look how easily they can save their work and reuse it. Now I'm going to say when 0 is less than t is less than 1, and when 3 is less than t is less than 4, r prime of t is positive, and p prime of t is negative. Therefore, p and r are traveling in opposite directions in those intervals. And I have a nice solution, and the AP graders can see all of my work.
Mike, can you show, what would that look like, the graph, if you go to PDF? I'm just curious.
Sure, let's take a look. Control P. Remember that the whole saving as PDF part, the students are going to have 5 minutes of totally dedicated time to do that. So they work on their first question, they have 25 minutes of work time. Then, and all that really is a countdown timer, because you're not actually producing anything for AP during that time, like on their website. That's just the amount of time they let you see the question. After a 25-minute timer goes off on question 1, the question will disappear and the students will not be able to see it anymore. Technically, if they, I don't know, had their information written nicely in Classpad, they could work for another couple minutes if they needed to stretch the time. But they're going to have 5 minutes after that 25 and 5 minutes after the 15 for question number 2 to do what we're doing here. Oh, save as PDF. Okay, so now you look down. Notice the graphs are nice and colored.
Okay, nice.
The sticky notes, the background of the sticky notes does not appear colored. And there's a little bit of awkward page breaking going on here. The students could obviously go back and slide things up and down if they wanted to. But they don't have to. I mean, I could go back now and I could, take number 2 and part A and take its calculation area and just slide it up slightly. I've got some room, and then maybe I can slide this other stuff down a little bit. I won't mess with doing all of that. You'll just see the difference when I've slid that one element up. Oh, that shows you something that is a good thing to point out. I'm glad that happened actually. If you notice when I went to save as PDF, I only had one sticky note on my entire paper. Oh no, all my work's gone. Student freaks out. The reason that's the case is because I had moved the sticky note and it's selected. See, if I just select like these 2 sticky notes with the check marks, they're the only thing that will print. If I unselect them, so nothing is selected, then everything prints. It's kind of like, the Twin Cities for the past year after a certain musical artist died, right? Everything prints. So you can see that this got moved up. I've got some blank space. I could move this stuff down if I really cared. AP is not going to be picky about the formatting of student solutions at this time. If the math is formatted right, they are not going to care about this page break. They're going to be very lenient comparatively to these students because they know that this is an impossible time in several ways for these kids. So that's how it would turn out.
Mike, there's about 5 minutes left. So I don't know if you wanted to
okay.
something.
Yep, there's one more thing I want to show. I'm gonna not mess with the rest of question 2. I'm just going to show you a little bit about question 3. Question 3 is very straightforward definition. You're given a function. You're asked to find the derivative. We've already talked about doing that. Though the one thing that I want to show you, and we've also already talked about, by the way, definite integral. So that you now know how to do that. But the thing I want to talk about, write an equation for the line tangent to the graph at x equals -3. One of the most common AP calculus questions ever. So how might we go about doing that? Well, there's a couple of ways. First of all, we can create a graph. And we can just start by just graphing the function that we were given, which in this case was f of x equals the square root of 25 minus x squared. Here's your function, semicircle. Now watch this. I'm going to select the semicircle. I'm going to click on it with my pointer. I know it's selected because I can see its equation appear down here. Once I do that, this little contextual menu becomes available. And I'm going to click that contextual menu. And one of the options you are given is tangent. You're now given a trace point.
This happened to me.
I think the reason that that's happening actually is because it really wants a y instead of an f of x. And that has to do with what this particular function is, because it gets very unhappy about it being a function when it gets close to 0. Let's try y. I think the first time I did this, I did y.
I think you're right, because this happened the other day to me.
So there's tangent. So let's use this y. And I get this point, this trace point, but I want you to notice I get the equation of the tangent line. This is brilliant.
Wait, that's not considered cheating?
No, because I could have written a program and put it in my
Okay.
calculator ahead of
All
time
right.
that finds the equation of a
I
tangent
just
line.
want to
Very
make
true.
sure.
No. Now, College Board and AP may want to see more work,
Okay.
which is fine. And I'll show you how to create the work in just a second. But if I'm just starting to mess around, like basically what I'm doing is I'm going to create the answer key first and then go and do the work that verifies my answer key. So I'm going to take this point and I'm going to drag it. Now, if I drag it to like, -3, which is where they wanted me to find the tangent line, is that brilliant or what?
Ooh, that was very nice.
Look
placement.
at that, right? I mean, I'm done. Like, this is my answer key. If I don't get this answer in the other work that I do, I'm wrong. But I have the tangent line.
So now you just do your work. I see.
Right, exactly. So now if I want to find the equation of the tangent line, I could go to calculate. I could say, you know what? I want to define this function called f of x. I want to call this function 25 minus x squared. And then I want to, as you saw before, I want to take the derivative of this function. So let's take the derivative of f of x. Now what I want to do is I want to evaluate the answer. And I'm going to use this little bar again. That's the same one we used for graphing, the shift option above your enter key. I want to evaluate this at x equals -3. Oh, great, it's 3/4. That tells me that at x equals -3, the slope is 3/4. There it is, 0.75. It's accurate. And now what I want to do is I want to say, well, I'm going to use point slope form. The point's -3, 4, the graph shows it. So I can say y minus 4 is equal to the answer, that's my slope, times x plus 3. And you know what? I could even say, you know what? I want to solve that equation for y. Hey, look, slope-intercept form, 3/4 x plus 25/4. It makes me happy because it matches my answer key. And I could, of course, then write text that makes the AP graders happy that says, I know what I'm talking about when I do these things. So
Nice.
that's hopefully a nice introduction to you to a number of different things. I mean, we looked at 3 different FRQs that are asking for 3 very different things. Hopefully you saw some of the power of Classpad. Any of the calculations with variables that I was doing can be done also with the Classpad handheld, which is the CG 500, correct, Amy?
Correct.
I had the model number right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you have that or your students have that and they want to do that work on a handheld, that's where you could do this kind of work. This graphing work that we're doing here could also be done on the CG50, the Prism calculator, the color grapher. It can also be done on the FX9860 G3, which is the black and white model, or 9750 G3, excuse me. Basically what I'm saying is any of Casio's high school handheld graphers from top to bottom can do this kind of work, this kind of graphing work. And even do the numerical finding of values of derivatives, can do that as well. So finding, for example, the slope of the tangent line would be very easy. And by the way, all of Casio's high school graphers can do this tangent line work that we saw right here. So really a lot of opportunities. Remember that the key takeaway here is that I doubt you're going to find a better platform, digital platform, for students to be able to lay out their solutions, do all their calculations and all their graphing work, and still produce the text file, in this case PDF, that has to be uploaded to College Board at the same time. So instead of making that 2 or 3 processes for them that they have to do in that short amount of time that they have to work, why not allow them to do all of their work in the same space?
Great.
Any remaining questions from any of you?
I don't see any in the chat panel.
All right.
All right.
Well, with that,
Well,
I am
thank you,
going
Mike.
to-
This is great. Amy, are you going to conclude?
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for all that information. As Mike pulls up this the last page of our PowerPoint. Just wanted to let you know that we do have this webinar recorded, so we'll be going up on the youtube.com, our YouTube web channel, which you can find there at youtube.com/Classpad.net. Be sure to check out our website as well. We actually just launched our webinar landing page, so you can take a look at some of our upcoming webinars that might interest you. Next week, we will take a look at AP statistics. Actually, the next 2 weeks, we'll be looking at AP statistics, both with Classpad.net and with our handheld graphing calculators. And then also follow us on social media.
And just as an FYI, at the Casio Cares down there, all the emulator software for the calculators is available for free. So that might be, you know, another option for students and teachers to explore as well.
Yep.
All right. Well, Thank you. Thanks, Mike. That was great.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
I learned a lot. And I'm glad I don't have to take that test.
I am glad to.
Yeah.
Although, actually, I
saw that in the chat.
Yeah, I wish I had the software when I was taking the test. That would have been really nice.
I think there are probably a number of us AP calculus teachers that sometimes would say, I'm glad I don't have to take this test, but here's how you need to do well on it.
Exactly.
Just a note, I'm going to have this recording up by tomorrow. So anyone who wants to share this with students you know who are going to be taking the test, just to give them something to, you know, practice with, as Mike was saying, or teachers who are working with students, it should be up by tomorrow on our YouTube.
Yeah. And if you have any students taking them, wish them luck.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.